White woman blocks, elevator for black man. Then he unlocks the penthouse. If Nathan had known his new address would turn him invisible, he might have stayed in his old life a little longer. But here he was, dressed in a pressed navy suit, portfolio in hand, standing at the gold-trimmed elevator of the Colonnade residences, heartbeat echoing the cold, efficient hum of money. A white woman in a silk blouse and pearls blocked the entrance, her manicured finger already stabbing the close door button. "This is for residents only," she said, voice slicing the air like crystal. "Guests need to wait in the lobby. House rules." Nathan blinked, forcing a breath through his teeth. Behind him, marble floors reflected the kind of shine that said, "Don't get comfortable." He raised his key fob, its plastic edge still sharp from being issued just yesterday. "I live here," he managed, voice steady but soft. The woman's lips curved, smiling, but not at him. "You must be mistaken. I know all the residents in this building." Her eyes flicked down his suit, lingered on the deep brown of his hands, and then darted back up, calculating. "If you're delivering something, leave it with the front desk. Thank you." The doors began to close. Nathan stepped forward, catching her gaze, refusing to shrink. "Ma'am, But the panel slid shut, his words swallowed by the hum of steel and old money. The numbers over the elevator blinked upward. 3, 12, 18, gone. For a second, Nathan's chest burned not from exertion, but from that cold, sharp humiliation that seeps beneath the skin. He stood, staring at his own reflection in the brass. Young, sure, not quite 30. Black, shoulders broad enough to look confident, but not enough to feel untouchable in a place like this. Behind him, the lobby staff shifted, eyes flicking up and away, then back to their phones. Nathan considered waiting. He considered calling the front desk, but the thought of standing there, on display, waiting for someone to approve his existence in his own home, made his jaw clench. Instead, he turned, heading for the fire stairwell, metal door swinging shut behind him with a hollow, echoing clang. 1 flight, then 3. His breath quickened, but he pressed on, focusing on the rubber soles slapping concrete, the thump in his ears, the bite of resentment with every step. On the 10th floor, an older man in golf attire stepped aside with a frown, glancing at Nathan as if he might ask for a tip. "You lost, son?" Nathan didn't answer. He kept climbing, past framed art, past a woman walking her tiny white dog, its yapping echoing in the stairwell, past the silent, indifferent cameras set into the corners. By the 25th floor, Nathan's legs trembled. Sweat slicked the back of his neck. He paused, straightening his jacket, chest heaving, heart pounding, not just from the climb, but from something uglier rage he'd buried years ago, the kind that came roaring back in moments like this. At his door, his fingers shook as he pressed the fob to the lock. The green light blinked. Home. But it didn't feel like home yet, not with the memory of that no so practiced, so easy still scraping at his ribs. Nathan set his things down. Outside his window, the city glowed, indifferent, skyscrapers burning in the dusk. He watched, feeling both above and below it all at once. He thought about calling his mother. She would listen. She always did. She'd tell him to pray, to forgive, to rise above. He didn't want to. Not tonight. Instead, he sat in silence, replaying the woman's words, the closed doors, the way the staff hadn't even tried to intervene. Night came fast in the city. As it settled over Chicago, Nathan dressed again, this time in a darker suit, sharper tie, a badge clipped to his lapel. Colonnade Redevelopment Group CEO. He looked at his own reflection and forced his mouth into a thin, cold smile. "Let's see if they notice me now," he thought. At 8 p.m., the Colonnade's grand hall glittered under chandeliers. Residents, faces he'd glimpsed in the hallways and elevators, gathered in clusters, silk scarves, starched shirts, confidence worn like armor. Glasses clinked. A hush fell as the building manager, Mr. Taylor, called for attention. "Please welcome the new owner of our building and the chairman of our board, Mr. Nathan Cole." A ripple. Murmurs. Nathan stepped forward, every head turning. He caught the woman from the elevator, Mrs. Wilmot, standing near the front, eyes widening as recognition dawned. She looked at him like she'd seen a ghost, or worse, an error in the system she couldn't explain. Nathan cleared his throat, feeling the weight of every stare, every dismissal, every moment of being made invisible. He raised his chin, voice steady and bright, filling the room. "Good evening. I want to thank you for welcoming me finally into your home." For a heartbeat, no one moved. The silence stretched, electric, and in that breathless space, Nathan smiled. For the first time all day, it felt real. He could still feel the echo of the elevator doors sliding shut, the mechanical finality of it, as if the building itself had decided, not for you. Nathan's hand hovered in the air for a second longer than necessary, half expecting the polished steel to yield, to open again by mistake. It didn't. The numbers on the display began to rise, and he was left in the silent marbled corridor, an afterthought in a place he was supposed to call home. The embarrassment burned hotter the higher he climbed. 1, 2, 3, each floor felt like a lesson. By the 10th, the sting had settled somewhere behind his ribs, hard and cold. By the 20th, it was anger, clean and sharp. And by the time he pushed through the stairwell door onto the 25th, his legs trembling and his shirt clinging to his back, it had already become something else. A vow. He paused in the empty hallway, steadying his breath. Chicago sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, cutting gold patterns across the hallway carpet. For a moment, he let himself wonder if she'd be waiting there, a little abashed, maybe even apologetic. But the hallway was empty. Only the echo of her voice lingered. Guests aren't allowed without an escort replaying itself with each thud of his pulse. Nathan turned the key to his new apartment. The space inside was elegant, all glass and wood and city views, but the air was thick with the memory of humiliation. He dropped his backpack by the door and sat on the edge of the immaculate couch, the city sprawling out beneath him. He wanted to call someone, to vent, but his contacts list was empty of anyone who'd really understand. His family would say to let it go, that it wasn't worth the trouble. But that wasn't what he felt. What he felt was a refusal. Not again. He set to work. There were boxes to unpack, forms to review, calls to return. He was good at this, disappearing into precision, into details and blueprints, into the silence of logic. But it didn't work this time. Each time he opened a drawer or unwrapped a glass, the words came back. Guests, not for you. He stepped onto the balcony as evening fell, city lights blinking to life like a million private judgments. Down below, a handful of residents, white, elegant, laughing, emerged from ride shares, crossing the marble lobby as if the world were built to open for them. Nathan watched, invisible, until the cold forced him inside. He hadn't expected it to feel like this. He had worked, saved, planned, outbid half the city for this address. He'd built bridges, not just the steel and cable kind, but the invisible ones too, scholarships, late nights, business pitches. He'd done everything right. So why did he still feel like he was waiting for permission to arrive? Later, as he tried to focus on a proposal due in the morning, a sharp knock rattled his door. He opened it to find the building concierge, Mr. Bray. Ellis smiling, formal, his uniform crisp. Good evening, Mr. King. I just wanted to check everything is satisfactory with your move-in. If you need anything, don't hesitate to call. Nathan nodded, polite, searching the man's eyes for any sign he'd heard what happened. But the concierge's gaze skittered away, and his smile was tight, practiced. Actually, I did have a small issue earlier, Nathan said, voice careful. I was blocked from entering the elevator by a resident. She said I wasn't allowed. The smile didn't waver. Mrs. Wilmot takes building security quite seriously, sir. We've had issues with, non-residents before. She means well. Nathan let the silence stretch. She assumed I wasn't a resident. Some of our tenants can be particular. If there's ever an issue, please let the desk know. It was clear. The desk would not be doing anything. The desk served those with history, not newcomers, especially not newcomers like him. Nathan thanked the man, closed the door, and stood in the hush, jaw tight. Night deepened. Nathan wandered the echoing halls of his new home, tracing the lines of the kitchen, the marble counters, the wine fridge he didn't want. This was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, he found himself rehearsing answers for conversations that never happened. He didn't sleep much. At 4 a.m., he was still at his laptop, blueprints open, city lights flickering beyond the glass. At sunrise, he was still working, eyes gritty and dry. The building's group chat buzzed that morning, a message from the board. Reminder, community meet and greet with the new board chair tonight, 7 p.m. Attendance strongly encouraged. Refreshments provided. Nathan read it twice, then scrolled through previous messages, complaints about delivery drivers, lost packages, an ongoing debate about noise from the gym, nothing about people being blocked from elevators. He dressed carefully that evening. No hoodie, no sneakers, a dark blazer, pressed shirt, polished shoes. As he locked the apartment, he caught his own reflection in the glass, tall, young, sharp-eyed. Not a guest, not someone to be overlooked. But still, the memory of the elevator clung to his shoulders, a weight he could not shake. The lobby was bustling when he arrived. Neighbors gathered in small clusters, silk blouses, designer bags, the scent of expensive perfume and old privilege. Laughter rose in short, staccato bursts, sharp as broken glass. He spotted Mrs. Wilmot immediately. She stood near the refreshment table, pale and rigid in a pearl necklace, her hand resting lightly on the arm of the same concierge who'd smiled at Nathan's door. Their heads were together, voices low, eyes sweeping the room. Nathan kept to the edge, watching as people greeted each other, air-kissed, traded names. Not once did anyone approach him. A group formed in front of the makeshift stage, where a microphone waited beside a small arrangement of lilies. The old board chair. A silver-haired man in a blue suit tapped the mic. "Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us on such short notice. It's my pleasure to introduce the new chair, a person whose vision will help usher in a new era for this building." As he spoke, Nathan watched the crowd. Some faces were curious, others impatient, some simply bored. He felt their gazes slide over him in a way, as if he didn't quite register. Mrs. Wilmot leaned in, whispering something to the concierge, who nodded and gave her a thin smile. A tremor of nerves flickered through Nathan. He almost laughed at himself. He'd spoken in front of city councils, investors, engineers. Yet here, in this gleaming lobby, he felt 17 again, about to be called on for an answer he didn't know. He looked up, straightened his shoulders. Tonight wasn't about them. Tonight was about what he'd built, what he intended to build. The old chair finished his speech, stepping aside. "Please welcome Mr. Nathan King." There was a flicker of surprise, a murmur, a ripple through the crowd as Nathan stepped onto the small stage. Some faces turned expectant, others frowned, as if waiting for the real chairperson to appear. He could see Mrs. Wilmot's mouth tighten, the blood draining from her cheeks. The concierge's eyes went wide. Nathan took a slow breath, steadying himself. He looked out at the faces, some hostile, some confused, some merely expectant. He spoke, and his voice cut through the hum of the lobby, clear and unwavering. "Good evening. For those who haven't met me yet, my name is Nathan King. I'm the owner of King Engineering Group. Last month, my firm acquired the majority stake in this building. Tonight, I'm here as your new board chair and as your neighbor." There was a beat of silence. It was as if every conversation, every breath hung in the air. Nathan felt it, the shift, the ripple, the invisible current of power moving through the room. He let the pause stretch, meeting their eyes. No one looked away. He began to speak of plans, real plans, upgrades to the heating and water systems, improved security. He mentioned his company's work on sustainable skyscrapers, on affordable housing projects, on building communities, not just buildings. But as he spoke, he felt the tension in the room rising, not because of the news, but because of him. The man they'd ignored, dismissed, shut out of their elevator, was now the one in control. As he finished, Nathan let his gaze rest on Mrs. Wilmot. He saw the realization hit, saw the mask falter, saw the fear beneath the veneer. He almost felt pity, but not quite. He looked out over the crowd, the faces flushed, the eyes wide, the hierarchy upended. For a moment, nobody spoke. Nobody knew what to do with the new order. Nathan's heart pounded not with fear, but with triumph, a slow-burning, quiet fire. He'd climbed every step. Now he stood at the top, and the view belonged to him. Nathan stood in the shadowed wings of the crowded residence lounge, heart pounding in his chest not with nerves, but with anticipation. For 25 floors he had climbed those stairs on aching legs, carrying a silence heavier than any suitcase. That silence was gone now, replaced by a low buzz of voices from the gathering crowd, neighbors in tailored suits and designer dresses, their eyes flicking between the stage and the entrance, wondering, whispering, calculating. Who is this new chairman? Will he cut costs or raise fees? Will he change our view? None of them expected him. None of them saw him coming. Outside, dusk bled orange along the city skyline, glass towers glowing. But inside, the faces were closed, anxious, the kind of crowd that had never been told no by anyone they couldn't fire. Nathan's own name was still a mystery to most. He could see Mrs. Wilmot in the third row, her posture perfect, lips pursed, scanning the faces for allies. She was talking with the concierge, Mr. Sellers, who stood behind her chair like a loyal guard dog. She didn't see Nathan, though. She never really saw him at all. Someone tapped a microphone. The buzz faded. A gray-haired man in an expensive blazer stepped onto the stage. "Thank you for joining us for this special meeting of the board and residents. Please welcome the new owner and chairman, Mr." He hesitated, glanced at his paper, then looked up, uncertain. "Nathan Carter." A ripple of confusion passed through the room. A few heads tilted. Someone coughed. Then, from the side, Nathan stepped into the light. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. Mrs. Wilmot blinked, as if trying to make sense of what she saw. That man? The one from the elevator? She shifted in her seat, straightened her scarf, but the color had drained from her face. Nathan paused just before the microphone, eyes scanning the room. He saw the suspicion, the discomfort, the open surprise. He saw people shift in their chairs, saw fingers tighten around the arms, saw a few people pull their phones out searching his name, perhaps, or ready to complain. He felt the weight of their doubt, their assumptions. But Nathan smiled a small, private smile. Nothing for them yet. He took the mic, his voice clear and measured. "Thank you for that introduction, and thank you all for coming tonight. I'm Nathan Carter, owner of Carter Engineering and, as of last month, owner of this building." A hush spread. Mrs. Wilmot's mouth opened, closed, as if she were trying to swallow a pill without water. Nathan continued, voice calm but carrying to every corner of the room. "Some of you have met me before, some of you have not. But I want to begin with a story, a true story, one that happened right here, just this morning." He let the silence stretch. People leaned in. The tension grew thick, electric. "This morning, I tried to take the elevator to my new home on the top floor. I was stopped by a resident who, believing I didn't belong, blocked my way. She informed me that guests were not allowed without supervision and insisted the doors be closed in my face." Now the silence was brittle, dangerous. Nathan watched the crowd, saw eyes dart toward Mrs. Wilmot, who looked suddenly small in her seat, the mask of composure beginning to crack. Nathan went on. "I climbed 25 flights of stairs, not because I had to, but because I know what it means to be underestimated, to be told in small and large ways that you are not enough, that you don't belong." He looked at Mrs. Wilmot. This time, she met his gaze. She didn't look away. "But tonight, I'm not here to dwell on that moment. I'm here to talk about change." He shifted his weight, placing both hands on the podium. "This building is more than steel and glass. It's a community. And a community is only as strong as the respect we show one another." He let that land. The words, simple and precise, filled the space between them. The mood began to turn, suspicion replaced by curiosity, even unease. Nathan's eyes swept the room. "I have purchased this building because I believe in its potential not just as an address but as a model for something better. Starting tonight, there will be new policies in place. Some may find them strict. Others may find them overdue." He pressed a button on the remote in his hand. Behind him, the big screen flickered to life, showing images of new security systems, sleek cameras, keyless entry pads, digital logs. "We're implementing facial recognition at all entry points," he announced, "not for surveillance, but for accountability. Anyone, resident or staff, who harasses, blocks, or impedes a neighbor on the basis of race, appearance, or perceived status will have their actions reviewed. There will be consequences." Murmurs broke out. Some residents nodded. Others looked nervous, uncertain. Nathan went on, voice unwavering. "We will also be establishing an anonymous reporting line for discrimination and harassment. Violations will result in review and, if necessary, immediate removal from the building." Now the crowd was fully awake, sitting straighter, a few faces bright red. Nathan didn't stop. He turned slightly toward the concierge. "Mr. Sellers, as of this moment, your employment is terminated. You were a witness to the incident this morning and chose to support exclusion rather than community. Please collect your things." A gasp. The concierge, suddenly pale, looked at Mrs. Wilmot, but she avoided his gaze. Nathan's words sharpened. We will not tolerate a culture of enabling or silent compliance. Every staff member will receive new training. Every resident will be required to attend a seminar on anti-discrimination, community standards, and conflict resolution. Someone stood up in the back. Isn't this a bit much? This was just a misunderstanding. Nathan's gaze was calm, direct. One misunderstanding is all it takes for someone to feel unwelcome in their own home. I've lived that reality, many of us have. But it ends here. His words echoed. For a moment, no one spoke. Nathan softened. This isn't about punishment. It's about growth, about making this place safer, fairer for everyone. Because the greatest buildings aren't just built with concrete, they're built with courage, with respect, with the willingness to do better. He took a breath, letting the silence stretch, giving space for the message to settle. He saw Mrs. Wilmot in the front, her eyes glassy. He didn't feel anger anymore, only a kind of solemn relief, a deep exhale. He had not come here for revenge. He had come for justice. For himself, yes, but also for anyone who'd ever been left on the other side of a closing door. A small, trembling hand rose in the crowd, a young black woman in a nurse's uniform, standing near the wall. "Thank you," she said softly, voice cracking. "For saying it out loud." Nathan nodded, humbled. "Thank you. For being here. For staying." He stepped away from the mic, the room holding its breath. Slowly, the crowd began to clap, not all at once, but like the start of rain. Then, louder. Real applause. Some stood, some cried, even Mrs. Wilmot stood as if unsure what else to do. Her face was unreadable, but she did not look away from Nathan again. Nathan walked off stage, shoulders straighter, breath easier. He felt lighter, not because the work was done, but because the weight was finally shared. As he passed through the crowd, people reached out. "Welcome home," one said. "About time," another whispered. A few simply touched his arm, silent but grateful. Nathan paused by the elevator, pressed the button, and waited. The doors slid open. Inside, a mother and her daughter, both brown-skinned, smiled at him. "Going up?" the woman asked. Nathan grinned. "All the way." He stepped in. This time, no one blocked his way. Outside, the city lights glowed brighter than ever. The world had shifted, just a little but enough. Tonight, the penthouse wasn't just his. For the first time, the whole building felt like it belonged to everyone. And Nathan, no longer invisible, belonged right where he was.